There are places in America where basic things just don't work. Not sometimes. All the time. No grocery store within 30 miles. Sewage that surfaces in the yard. A hospital that closed 3 years ago and was never replaced. These aren't disaster zones. Nobody declared an emergency. Life just continues, quietly, on less than it should. That's what makes it hard to look at. It's not dramatic enough to make the news. It's just a town where things stopped working, and nobody came to fix them, and after a while, everyone stopped expecting them to. These are 7 of those places, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. Welch, West Virginia, the town that got left in its own frame. The storefronts on McDowell Street still have their original cornices, wide display windows, limestone detail work that somebody paid serious money for, once. These buildings weren't thrown up cheap, they were built to last. That's the problem. They lasted. The reason for them didn't. At its peak, McDowell County had over 100,000 people. The coal was everywhere. The jobs were everywhere. The money was real. Then the mines mechanized. Then they closed. The young people followed the jobs out. The population today is under 19,000 and still falling, with nearly 1 in 3 residents below the poverty line. What stayed behind is the physical shape of a boom that ended. The grid of streets, the school built for 5 times the current enrollment, the storefronts facing each other across a main street that doesn't need to be that wide anymore. Walking through Welch on a Tuesday afternoon, the absence feels architectural. Not dangerous, not chaotic, just subtracted. Like someone carefully removed everything that made a town loud and left a container. Presidio, Texas. Presidio is a border town. It sits directly across the Rio Grande from Ojinaga, Mexico, and on paper that sounds like a connection. 2 countries meeting, trade, movement, exchange. In practice, it feels like the end of a road that nobody else is taking. The nearest city is Midland, Texas, 2.5 hours north. There's 1 hospital in the county, and it's been on the edge of closing more than once. No chain grocery stores. Summers that routinely hit 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and an economy that revolves around the border crossing itself, but doesn't really reach the people who live there. What's striking about Presidio isn't just the isolation. It's the specific shape of it. This community is deeply connected to Mexico, by family, by culture, by daily life. But it's governed from Austin by a state that treats the border as a security perimeter, not a community. And it's served by a federal government that sees it as a checkpoint, not a home. So it exists in the gap, geographically American, systematically forgotten. Lynch, Kentucky. Lynch wasn't discovered, it was designed. U.S. Steel built it in 1917 from bare ground, houses arranged by rank, streets laid in a grid, a company store, a company hospital, a company church. Everything had a function. Everything served the mine. At its peak, Lynch was the largest coal-producing town in the world. Walk through it today, and you can still read the original hierarchy in the landscape. The superintendent's house is still uphill from the foreman's house, which is still above the workers' houses. The logic is intact. What's missing is the company that imposed it. The last major mine closed decades ago. The population went from nearly 10,000 to a few hundred. The company's store is a museum now. But here's what makes Lynch different from just another dying town. It's not fading randomly. It's fading inside a structure that was never built for the people who remain. Every street, every row of houses, every sightline was designed for extraction, for profit, for someone else's purpose. The people who stayed are still living in that design. It just doesn't have a reason anymore. Clarksdale, Mississippi. Robert Johnson, Sun House, Muddy Waters, the juke joints on Sunflower Avenue where Delta Blues was born, not as a genre, but as a way of surviving something almost unsurvivable. Clarksdale has a museum dedicated to all of it. It's well-funded, genuinely excellent, full of photographs and guitars and carefully preserved history. Tourists come from across the country. Outside the museum, a poverty rate of around 40%, a population that has shrunk by nearly 40% since 1980. Blocks that are more empty lot than building, structures cleared and never replaced, weeds through cracked asphalt, murals of blues, legends painted on walls that face nothing. This is the specific cruelty of Clarksdale's situation. The culture was taken, celebrated, built into the foundation of American music, and monetized by an industry that never came back. The people who created it, and their descendants, still here, still living with 40% poverty, were not part of that deal. The Blues Museum is real. The poverty is real. And somehow, Both things have been allowed to exist in the same zip code for decades without that being treated as a contradiction. Mentone, Texas, a county seat with no county left. Loving County, Texas. 671 square miles of Permian Basin desert. Between 50 and 100 residents, depending on the year. The least populated county in the contiguous United States. Mentone is the county seat. There is no grocery store. There is no gas station inside the county limits on most maps. The nearest hospital is an hour away on an empty highway, which means a heart attack, a car accident, a difficult birth is already a medical emergency compounded by distance before anyone even starts driving. Mentone technically has a courthouse, a post office, a county judge who handles whatever county business arises. Elections are held, the administrative machinery of American governance is present. Everything else that makes a place livable isn't. It's not that Mentone is suffering visibly, it's that it barely registers as a place at all. And yet, the people who live there connected to the oil industry, mostly because that's the only reason to be there, are technically citizens of the wealthiest country on earth. They just can't get a sandwich without planning a road trip. Gloucester, Mississippi. The kind of disappearing nobody talks about. Gloucester doesn't appear on most maps. It's unincorporated, which means no municipal government, no tax base, no formal structure for demanding anything from anyone. It exists because people are still there. That's the only reason. The population has been declining for decades. There's no major employer. Healthcare is a long drive. Groceries are a long drive. Young people leave because there's no reason not to, and every year the community gets a little older, a little smaller, a little quieter. No single thing caused this. No mine closed, no flood hit, no factory moved overseas. It's something slower and harder to point at, the steady withdrawal of investment, of attention, of any signal that this place matters to the systems that are supposed to serve it. One fewer clinic, one fewer school, one fewer bus route. Repeated, year after year, until the infrastructure that holds a community together has been quietly disassembled, piece by piece, without anyone ever making a single decision that felt like abandonment. Just a lot of small decisions that added up to the same thing. Camden, New Jersey. Camden sits just across the river from Philadelphia. On a map, it looks like it should be part of the same city, same region, same access to everything. But once you cross into Camden, the difference is immediate. Entire blocks are filled with abandoned homes, not one or two, but rows of them, windows boarded up, structures slowly breaking down. Some streets feel empty in the middle of the day, not because it's quiet in a peaceful way, but because there's simply less activity than you'd expect this close to a major city. For years, Camden struggled with high crime, poverty, and lack of investment. While nearby areas continued to grow, parts of this city were left behind. It's not just about crime. In fact, parts of the city have improved. But the feeling doesn't change as much as you'd expect. Basic services exist, but not evenly. Some neighborhoods have improved, others haven't changed much at all. And that contrast is what makes it feel off. Because you're not in the middle of nowhere, you're right next to a major American city, and yet it can feel like you've crossed into a completely different environment. At some point, it stops feeling like an extension of Philadelphia and starts to feel like a place that developed on a different path entirely. Once you see it, it's not a perfect comparison, calling these places third world, but it says something. It says there is a version of America that does not match the promise, not as an exception, as a pattern. Welch, Presidio, Lynch, Clarksdale, Mentone, Gloucester, Camden. Different states, different histories, different reasons for being where they are. But the same feeling once you're inside it, that the systems designed to support ordinary life simply aren't here. And haven't been for a long time. And the people who remain have learned slowly to stop expecting them. That's what stays with you after visiting places like these. Not the statistics, not the policy arguments, just the quiet. And the growing suspicion that once you start noticing it, you're going to start noticing it everywhere.